Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Alexanne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified master neurocoaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now, and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together.
Hey, leader. Welcome back to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast. Man, oh man, are we in for a real treat today? We have a great friend of mine and author and transformational leadership coach here with us today, Danielle Bocchette. So Danielle and I met a few months ago, right? And of course, in one of the leadership rooms. And it was like, you know, when you just jump in a room and someone gets your attention and you're like, oh my goodness, I want to be friends with this person. Well, Danielle was that lady. And what was so fun is that
same girl, same.
Well, I was going to say that like immediately right after you text me, you're like, hey, like, let's chat, let's connect. And it's been such a journey in the last couple of months. And I'm just so excited to, just see where you're going with your coaching business, with your speaking engagements, with your keynote speaking engagements, your book, your journal, and just everything. I mean, you have such a passion for what you do and a stand. And I'm just so excited to have you here with us today to really share with our audience of very passionate leaders as well, of just, you know, the work that you've done and what you're standing for and the things that you've experienced and seen, and just, again, why you do what you do. So introduce yourself, let us know a little bit more about you. And then, let's dive into, well, what the sentence right behind you: work hard and be nice to people, right?
Sometimes it really is that simple. So thank you, Alex. I'm thrilled to be on the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast. And to be honest with you, with every passing day and every win, every conversation with you, my friend, I do feel pretty unleashed and unstoppable. So yay. I'm so excited. So a little bit about me. I live in Dexter, Michigan. And if you don't know where that is, if you've ever heard of the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, we're like 20 minutes from there. Most people know that in the States. And I'm married. I have 5 adult children and a grandbaby. That's the love of my life. And my professional background was in corporate human resources. And I chuckle to myself now as I see where I am on this journey, because way back then, I was very interested in connecting people with potential. And I was very passionate about my work as an HR professional. Fast forward, 25 years later, and I'm like, I'm still over here connecting people with potential. So that's fun to me. I do still actively support my husband's company, which is super fun, but it is slowing down because my passion over the last several years has really been focused on helping individuals see that the life they really want is hidden in the magic, or the magic that they're looking for, the life that they're looking for. It's hidden in the work that they're really kind of avoiding to do. And how do I know this? Because I'm them. I have always been seeking and looking for this certain kind of life, this certain kind of contentment, and in all the different areas of my life. And I realized when I started really diving in and doing some work on myself that it was really possible. But it did take work, and it did take intention. It takes a commitment to yourself, right? So here I am following my passion. And when you follow your passion, big, amazing things happen. So I am now a published author. I launched my book late 2023, and it's been amazing. I am a keynote speaker, and have recently launched my transformational life coaching platform, Build a Life You Love. So the whole premise behind Build a Life You Love is what I have realized for myself, and I think other people get to experience. So
I love that.
yeah.
Build a life you love. I mean, really, isn't that? I mean, I'm always like, we got one life to live. Let's live it to the fullest. So why not build a life you love? And in addition to your book, you also have a journal. So I believe it started off with your journal, right? And then the journal led into the book, or how does that work with the
Okay,
order?
so here's the funny thing that I've learned. So just keep following your heart, because the very first thing I ever created was a blog called Note to Self, which ultimately became a book. The very first journal I ever created was called Build a Life You Love, and it was a journal and a life planner. And that was like a fun thing that I created for myself first. And I was like, ooh, this is good. Maybe other people could benefit from this. And all of these things have just perfectly sort of like led to where we are today. So I have a life planner, Build a Life You Love life planner. I have coordinating journals to go with all three planners, the book, Note to Self, and my podcast, Note to Self. Yeah.
So I want to unpack that a little bit. Like that note to self, like where did that come from? The note to self, and where does that, like the role that it plays in this building life that you love?
Yeah. So in 2018, my mom had passed away suddenly. And that was sort of like the straw that broke the camel's back on, and already sort of like I was struggling with some different facets of my life, my career. My kids were growing up and leaving the house. It was just like a weird time of life. And shortly after that, I was really seeking healing. I started working with a life coach. Well, first I went and got therapy, like true like grief counseling therapy. But that only went so far. And I was like, okay, I really want to create something more empowering for myself. So I started working with a life coach. And she and I would have these beautiful aha moments as I was really doing the work. It was work. I will tell you, sometimes I really wanted to run away. We would have these aha moments, and I would literally say to myself, note to self, and I would like grab a sticky note or a piece of paper and I'd jot down what she said because it would really land with me. Or maybe I would like put it in the margin of my journal. And I was doing this for like 2 years. And I had always wanted to write a book, Alex. I always had a book in me. And one day I like literally, this sounds dramatic, but because it is, I sat right up in bed and was like, note to self. That's the book. And I ran down and I grabbed all these notes, and the ones that weren't on sticky notes, I wrote on sticky notes and I put them up on the wall. And I was like, wow, this has actually been a journey. Like if you follow the notes to self, this has been a journey of growth and transformation from the very first note, which was focused on loving myself, to the very last note, which is like, all about empowerment and doing big things. And I just knew in that moment that these notes to self were not unique to me. I mean, they're just fundamental life truths that show up over and over and over again in varying degrees as an opportunity for you to reflect and learn from them. So I was pretty fired up, and I'm like, okay, here we go. And it still took me, I don't know, 2 more years to write the book. But that was the inspiration, is if I need to hear this, so does the rest of the world. And just a simple statement can be so profound and give you so much opportunity to reflect.
Wow.
Yeah.
So listen, I just want you to hear this for a minute of like, one, tapping your heart, being in the intuition, and really being connected to that calling, right? I mean, like you said, Danielle, the book was in you.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it's taken 2 years, and it's, I think that's part of even what you said earlier about like leaning in and doing some of that hard stuff, right? Like, what's our brain's job? Our brain's job is to keep us in the safe and familiar. So your brain was like winning for those 2 years until obviously things shifted for you. And I'd love for you to share a little bit what shifted for you to finally go ahead and write that book. But what would you well, yeah, let's go there. Like, what did you notice? What did shift, right? Because of course, for me, I'm always like, okay, what's going on in the brain to support that shift when you had that aha moment, and yet to that 2 years later, where you actually sat down and wrote the book.
Oh, what was the shift? I mean, it was a lot of things. I think the biggest shift was, do I have it anywhere close? I have a journal that says Life is Now. That's the cover of it. I think there was a moment in early 2023 where I realized like life really is now. It was just, there was such a sense of urgency. I had the opportunity to go through transformational leadership coaching and training myself. And through some of those experiences, I realized that we all have callings in our heart. We all have whispers and nudges, like we do. If you slow down and you're quiet enough, it's there. And it's probably been there for a long time. And when you get past the noise and you get real still and you listen to your heart, it kind of goes from a whisper to a little bit of a louder like battle cry, like this gets to happen, you know? And I think I think I just realized there was a sense of urgency, and there was a real I knew that there would be something very cathartic for me. I knew that part of my growth and healing and transformation process was actually writing the book, because as I dove back into each note to self, I relived that journey. I mean, the notes to self came through my own coaching myself through really hard stuff. Well, not coaching myself, I had a coach, but right, like allowing myself to go through and do that work. So life is now, and you get to figure it out. Like whatever the nudge is, whatever you're afraid of, like it's there for a reason. And I just like, you get to listen. And the more I listened, the louder it got.
So power of slowing down and speed up, right? Like, especially in such a busy world where we're like, go, go, go all the time. Like just the power of slowing down. And so those of you that tuned in to last week's episode, we had Jen on there, and she shared all about breath work. And my invitation, if you haven't listened to that episode, would be to go back and listen to that episode, because what you're saying, what you're speaking into, Danielle, is really that quote unquote, that download, right? Like you got silent, you got quiet enough to really connect with that, you know, that inner voice, what was calling to you. And then you're able to go out and take action, which is so powerful. Right? Like how many times, listener, are you thinking, oh no, I would love to do that, or I wish I could do this, or all of these things. Like take a moment, go back to last week's episode, listen to the breathing exercise Jen walked us through, and, you know, take note of what's coming to you. Take note of what's coming out and speaking to you of what you get to go take action on, because it's powerful. And the reminder, Danielle, about life is now is, life is now. It really is.
Like right this very moment. That's a hard one for me, Alex. I have a hard time slowing down. I get to spend some time with Jen. And I think that it's only when you slow down that you really can hear the whispers. That you can really give yourself an opportunity to feel. You know, I think my experience of many people who haven't done the hard work, or who have attempted to do the hard work and kind of have tapped out, is, excuse me, it's uncomfortable. It's the road less traveled. And like it's hard to stay still, and it's hard to stay present when you're really uncomfortable. And so I can say with confidence that when you're willing to do that, really magical things happen. And so I think someone was just asking me the other day, like to kind of tying together why I wrote the book and now the coaching and the whole Build a Life You Love sort of platform, if you will, how it all ties together. And I put it like this: I've always dreamt of building a life I love. In my heart of hearts, that phrase and what that meant was always there. It was there long before I wrote the book. I wrote the book as this cathartic process of really putting down on paper my journey in a way that other people could embrace. And when I started thinking about how to promote the book and encourage people to do the work, the coaching and Build a Life You Love program just was like the natural evolution of that. And so it's like where I started is where we are, if that makes sense. And we get to now use the book as a tool, as an invitation. You know, I see the book as an invitation to dive in and reflect and see what comes up for you when you read each one of these notes to self. And then if you really want to build a life you love and you really want to dig a little bit deeper into the work, that's where we get to go. That's where we really get to lock arms, roll up our sleeves, and be willing to be still and stick with it when it gets hard, you know, to experience the magic.
And you said something a little bit earlier too, and I want to really put an emphasis on that. We did an episode a few months ago, and it was really around choosing comfort over commitment, right? And our brain, it's wired to keep you in that comfort place, even though comfort doesn't mean that it's comfortable, because that's not where you want to be. It's more familiar to the brain, and so it's safe, even though it's not really serving you. But you said something earlier about when you chose commitment, when you stepped into the commitment piece, and this is it's so powerful, because the moment you choose commitment, the moment you are going all in, one, there's something that happens differently in the brain. You get a different neurochemical release of like, okay, I'm committed, I'm going all in. And there's a bit of a surrender to the discomfort, because you've already sort of agreed, okay, this is going to feel uncomfortable, but I'm going to lean into the discomfort and it be my friend. This is something actually Jen talks a little bit about on the episode last week. And I also heard it on another podcast recently with Lewis Howes, and it was the author of The Miracle. And she talks about, you know, she was experiencing depression, and she talked about she hugged it. She actually gave it, you know, imagine hugging it, right? Because a lot of times we resist, and what we resist persists.
Yeah.
And so by choosing commitment, embracing the discomfort, going on the journey with it, becomes your ally, becomes something that you are doing this with. And I'm sure, Danielle, there was probably some really challenging moments for you, right? But what did you feel? What was it that helped you get through those uncomfortable moments, those challenging moments, to now on the other side of where you are?
Well, I think one thing for sure, and this is what was coming up for me as I was listening, is not going it alone. I mean, that's one of the things. And that's why the book has been so powerful, and why I structured it the way I did is it really invites community. It invites you to share and do it together. There are book clubs that are doing the book, which I think is magnificent. I love that. Not doing it alone. You know, when you make that commitment, like if you were going to go I trained for a marathon a few years back, and you don't just be like, oh, well, I'm just going to see if it works. You do some research, you get a plan, you get a coach, you have a running plan, you have a schedule, like you educate yourself, because you know it's going to get uncomfortable, and you know somebody's going to have to hold you accountable. So I'd say not going it alone. I think being really heavily steeped in your why. You know, we talk about this a lot in our leadership coaching, your vision, right? When you get really clear on what your vision is, when things get really hard, bringing yourself back to your vision. I had a vision of being healed, Alex. I had a vision of being free. I had a vision of building a life I love. Like I could see it, right? And I knew that those things weren't possible unless and until I healed a bit inside. Healed things that I didn't even realize were like way down in there. And so being committed to your vision, being really attached to your vision, like literally writing it down every day. Like, where do I want to be? What does my vision look like? That helps you get through the hard times. You know, I'll use another marathon analogy. when you first start running, that first couple of miles feels hard. And then you're like, oh, I got to get to 7 or 8 miles. And you're like, how am I going to do that? I can only run 4. And you can't imagine how you're going to ever get from 4 to 6. And then when you get there, you're like, oh, I'm so glad I kept going because it's getting easier now as I go. And then it's easy for a while. And then you're like, oh, 18, I got to get to 18 miles. But every time you're reminding yourself, I have to get to 18 because this race is 26.2. Right. And so reminding yourself of what the end goal is, like you have no choice but to get through the hard. If you're going to continue to heal, if you're going to continue to grow, if you're going to continue to be stronger, if you're going to continue to be able to live in your vision.
Well, I think just to turn around there is like that is your choice. You've chosen that you want to heal. And this is part of the process and part of the journey that you walk through to get that. And I'm thinking of the muscle, right? Like when you start lifting weights, the same thing, right? You're not lifting, if you haven't lifted weights before, you're not picking up, a 50-pound weight. You're going to start with the 5 and the 10 and sure, at first you're like, oh my goodness, but you just keep on at it. I think it was actually in one of my workout programs, some guy who was like weightlifting a cow, but basically once the cow was born, he just lifted every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And because he was lifting it every single day, you don't even realize, that the cow's getting heavier, but you're developing that strength, you're developing that resiliency that comes with that and the mindset of the vision and that process. And so that the revisit there of those milestones, like that's what's so powerful about milestones, because a lot of times, when you're going from 0 to 26 miles, like that can, like right off the bat, your brain can totally want to shut down and feel overwhelmed by that. Yeah. And having those little milestones along the way from, okay, I'm going to get to 4 and then 6 and then 10, like even inside of you on the neural side, the neurochemicals being released there to keep you motivated and stay there, and to have someone alongside you to support you. I mean, Carol shared the other week about Jesse Itzler, and he was, training for his marathon, right? Like, how do you feel? I know you're
outstanding.
Yeah.
Was right? Outstanding? Is that the word?
Yeah. I mean, I taught this to Abigail. Abigail just completed a 7K hike last week. And all along the hike, I kept asking her randomly, hey, Abby, how do you feel? She turns around, I feel outstanding.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's powerful. Like, this is the power of the brain. It's so, and the brain can work for us or it can work against us. But the moment you commit and you are sort of surrender to what's going to happen, and you go up, you're not alone in this process. And we talk about this a lot about, you may hear a lot of time that leadership is lonely, and you might feel lonely sometimes, but go get a buddy, right? Go find someone to be on this process with you, because there are gonna be some hard moments.
And it doesn't happen all at once. I think one of the things that we sometimes too, that just sets us up for failure, is that we want change, we want growth, and we think there's some magic golden ticket out there, that's going to like tell us how to do it. And I firmly believe that growth, leadership, healing, any of it, building a life that you love, whatever that means to you, because it means something different to everyone. Building a life you love comes from one intentional day after another, over and over again. What does intentional mean? Intentional means choice. What does intentional mean? It means sticking with it when it's hard. What does intentional mean? It means when you feel like crap, you say, I feel outstanding, and you keep on going. It's the intention behind it. And it's those small incremental choices that are just outside your comfort zone. They're just like, right. It doesn't have to be way out there, just barely outside your comfort zone, that give you the opportunity for growth and for healing and put you one step closer to your vision, one step closer to the life that you love. And this goes for any part of your life. I talk with people about what building a life they love means. And it's, for some people, it's health. For other people, it's relationship. For other people, it's loving themselves. For others, it's finances. It's wherever it is. I can guarantee you, we know this, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so really kind of getting underneath what's driving you, what's motivating you, what's limiting you. You shift those ways of being. Those are things nobody can take away from you, right? Mm-hmm. The mindset and the way of being, those are things that nobody can take away from you. They become fundamental to who you be. And then it doesn't matter what part of your life you're trying to like light up. How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Well, and something you drove home there, which I think is really important to put an emphasis on, it's you as the individual. It's so easy to point fingers and look at everything outside of you, but you really are in control of your life, right? This gives you that power to be back in control of the driver's seat and make those decisions, right? It's really you that make those choices, right?
Okay, I call it, it's the last chapter of my book. Spoiler alert. The chapter of my book is You Are the Golden Ticket. And it wasn't there. I was ready to go to publish, and I had a conversation with a friend, and she was really down, and she had just gone through this beautiful transformational leadership course, and she was like, I just don't know. I feel like I should be somewhere else. And I said, were you looking for a golden ticket? And she's like, yeah, kind of. And I'm like, well, babe, you're the golden ticket. It's you, right? And so I think, that's fundamentally where we land is note to self is very purposefully named note to self. It's right here. And like anything that you want, that you desire, any part of the life that you're trying to build, that you love, like none of it's outside of you. It's all right here. You're the golden ticket. And you're the one that gets to choose. And you're the one that gets to do the work. And you're the one that gets to hold yourself accountable, right? It's like nothing's outside of you. So I am thrilled to be able to launch the coaching program and use my book as a tool. It's been really fun to take readers through the book. It's written very short little chapters that you can reflect on. It's an interactive book. There are journaling prompts inside the book for you to go a little bit deeper. And I love it because my friends who've gone through the book, it's like just the tip of the iceberg. And they're like, I want to go, I want to do more. I want to dig into this. And I'm like, let's go. And it's just like the perfect opportunity for them to really dig in and use that as a launch pad to building a life they love. So it's also perfect how it's coming together, Alex. I'm so excited.
Oh, and I just love the side of that, like just building the life you love. So in addition to obviously going and getting your book and diving deeper, what would you say for the listener just to get them started today in some sort of action to really start, defining, getting clear on what it even like because my invitation obviously to the listener is to go out and build the life you love. Like where would you ask them and suggest for them to get started to start to create that?
Well, I think there's two things that I ask people to do. Number one is, what is your vision? And something like, well, I don't even know what you mean. What does that mean? Well, it can be as simple as every day I write down 3 goals for my life as if they have already happened. Like as if for a long time I ran a marathon, and then it was so satisfying to check that off the list. But, as it relates to building a life you love and where you want to be, what is the vision for your life? Like there's no rules. Big as can be, write those 3 things down as if they've already happened. So I would say that's a simple way to start. Like, what does that look like? And then I think the other thing to consider is, in my mind, there are like 5 or 6 pillars of life, 5 or 6 facets of life that you get to decide where to focus on. Like if you had a magic wand, the magic wand is you. If you had a golden ticket, what area of your life would you focus on? So there's self-love, self-awareness. There's relationships, not just, intimate, romantic relationships, but all relationships. There's your overall health and wellness. There's your environment, your home, what surrounds you. And then there's how you show up in life, your leadership, who you be. So when you think about those things and you close your eyes, what parts do you already love? What parts do you get to shift so that you love more? Like, what is your heart's desire in every single one of those areas? Because it's possible. And I am convinced if you shift one of those areas, they all shift. I'm like, you know this. I don't have to convince you. And so I would say listeners can write down their vision, no rules. You know, what does it look like for you as if it's already happened? Where do you want to be in 1 year, in 2 years, in 5 years? Magic wand. And then really look at what part of your life do you want to focus on first? Building a life you love is one intentional day after another, over and over again.
And focus on vision. I think that's what's important to remember, right?
Yeah, because everything you do gets to lead from there. I mean, a perfect example is, you know, if your vision is like around health and wellness, the moment you're trying to decide whether you're going to get up and work out, if you operate from vision, you're getting up.
Yeah.
You're getting up when you're working out, right? If, you know, it's around finances or, you know, long-term financial freedom or wealth, you're going to make choices from your vision, right? So I think operating from vision and intentionality and choice.
And being reminded every moment, right? Like in the moment, as you're saying, right? Whatever, like being reminded of the vision and those moments, the decisions you're making in those moments, right? And Carol and I often talk a lot about, right, is deciding in advance. You deciding in advance what your vision is already supporting you in the decisions that you get to make, because those decisions in the moment then impact the actions you take, the result you create. So if the result is vision, you stay focused on vision, then you're going to reverse engineer what you're creating based on the decisions and actions you take, right? So
and I have a sneaky suspicion that as you continue to build a life you love, your vision gets bigger and bigger. You know? And you've heard it said before, you know, we're never transformed, we're always transforming. I said to someone yesterday, we're always building a life we love. We don't build and stop. Right? Like, why would we? We're still living. So I think it's the same. It's you're always building a life you love that is in line with the vision. And if the vision continues to get bigger, it continues to shift and change because we do. We're humans.
So I'm curious for you, Danielle, now with your journey, your process, all the things that you've gone through, what is one thing that you know now that you kind of wish you knew sooner, or maybe that you even teach your children, right, to support them in getting to this point sooner in life?
The greatest life lessons are in the hard. I tell my children, do hard things. Do the hard things. I don't mean make things hard. Like, I sometimes fall into that pitfall, but do hard things. It's in the hard where the growth comes. It's leaning into the uncomfortable. It's doing the work you're avoiding. I avoided it for a really long time. And if I could go back and tell my 25-year-old self anything, it would be do the hard things, learn from it, lean into it. When it gets uncomfortable, keep going. Yeah.
Do the hard things.
Do the hard things, chapter 1.
Well, and I know even when you first said that, I had a bit of resistance, because a lot of times with brain, our brain likes to overcomplicate things and likes to make things more hard and difficult than they need to be. But as you said there, don't make things hard. It's just do the hard things. And the hard thing is really what I see it as. It's that brain communicating and talking to you, because it is its way of saying, like, oh, that's outside of my comfort zone, right? That feels uncomfortable.
And
so
you could even say, Alex, the uncomfortable things.
yeah. Yeah.
Right? The uncomfortable things.
Oh, and I think that's what you're saying. Like
Yeah.
hard things are uncomfortable. And I think just mine are just thinking of in terms of, because it's just the power of the words, right? And in that word choice, it's like doesn't have to be hard, or we don't need to make things hard, right? Which is what our brain likes to do to overcomplicate it. But the hard things are the things out there that are there to make you stronger and have you grow, and that there is a lesson in it. And you're right, because our brain wants to dodge it. Our brain will make things harder for us, but it does want to dodge the uncomfortable, hard things. And so you've had me see it in a different light, I guess, as you present it that way, right? It is leaning into that.
I got a lot of pushback early on when I launched my brand, because that was like one of the flagship, things that I used to always say. Like, I was known for like the first 2 years with Mrs. B, do hard things. And I got a lot of pushback. And I think it was because of exactly what you're saying. And I think that misses the essence of it. It's stop avoiding, like, don't avoid discomfort. Right? And we all know, like, our brains know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying like, don't avoid the discomfort when your hand is burning. Like, we know what's uncomfortable and also probably for us, and we have a choice.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I really believe that, and what made me think of this is when we were talking about the words, it's the word choice, and that I've learned over the past couple of years, you really are the narrator of your life. You get to choose what every single part of your story looks like. And I would also tell my 25-year-old self, you're the narrator of your story, right? Like, don't get stuck on repeat. That story's old, right? If you're going to build a life you love, you get to very intentionally narrate that story. Yeah.
And I love where you put in that intentional, right? Because that intentional is aligned to your vision and what you're out there creating. So, Danielle, thank you so much for being here today. I mean,
I love it. Thank you.
Just leaning into even the reminder that you're always building out the life that you love, right? It's not just like, okay, here's a list and then I've got there and I'm done. Like, no, of course, like you talk, like you lean into a piece about how you're going to continue, and it's going to continue to open up for you, because as you experience the creation of what it is that you have declared, and you start to experience things that you have that are in your vision and your goals, well, that fuels, right, the brain, the motivation. It opens it up to want to keep going, right? And then the brain's always looking for evidence. It's either looking for evidence that's going to support what you're creating, or it's finding evidence that's not supporting. So the more you go out there, the more you lean into, the more you show your brain that, yeah, when you do hard things, a bear's not going to come out and eat you, right? Hard things actually get to become fun, because you realize the growth that you're experiencing and what's on the other side of that. I often say, like, you're one thought away from your biggest breakthrough.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you're one hard action, hard step, one feeling of uncomfortableness, from your next breakthrough, from your next realization, one step closer to that vision. And so thank you so much, Danielle, for being here and just really driving home some fundamental things when it comes to building and creating a life that you love, right? Like, I love now that I really fully understand, like, your book title, like Note to Self, it really is just like those gentle reminders of, like, the note to self, like in the brain of, like, the internal dialogue and conversation you're having. These are your notes to yourself that you're reminding yourself of, to keep, getting up, to keep taking action that align with your vision, to state those intentions, and to continue to move forward in building out and creating that life you love. So
exciting.
So beautiful.
It's exciting stuff. Yeah.
So where can the audience connect with you, learn more from you, get your book, if they want to
Yep.
Well, of course,
my
start defining this.
Yeah, my online community is with mrsb.com. Mrs. B, that's me. And author signed copies of the book are available there, along with some other inspirational merchandise, if you will, help you build a life you love. And all of the publications, the journals, the planners, and the book are all on Amazon. You just type in Danielle Bocchette or Note to Self, and they all come up. They're there, and they can be in your inbox, in your mailbox tomorrow. Yeah. I love Amazon.
Well, Danielle, thank you so much for being here. And thank you, listener, for tuning in to another episode of Unleash Unstoppable. Head on over to the show notes, take a look at Danielle's book, Note to Self, and of course, her journal, Build a Life You Love. And I'll see you guys all next week. Thanks so much for being here today, Danielle.
Thanks.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Alexandra Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review, and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.